Mini episode 1022 of the FDH Lounge is brought to you by Sportsology, delivering unconventional columns and webcasts about sports, TV, music, movies, and more. Follow them on the web at sportsology.com.
The FDH Lounge. You'll want to schedule your life around it.
A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our coverage of the NFL in 2018, our NFL divisional previews. Original FDH Lounge dignitaries Rick Morris and Chris Galloway with you here today. We are taking a look at the AFC West in this segment, and this is a division where, again, I made predictions division by division in Fantasy Football Draftology 2018. That was, again, by and large prior to training camp starting, the preseason games. Didn't really adjust since then. I'm looking at a couple of predictions that I made. There's one that looks unduly pessimistic, two that look unduly optimistic, and ironically, those are the two teams that are at the bottom of the division, but I think they're going to do even worse than I had thought. I was kind of hedging myself going around 8-8 a lot for this division. I know Chris and I are going to agree on the AFC West champion from talking to him off air. I've got the Chargers in that spot at 10-6. They have been close the last couple of years. I think this is the year that they kick down the door in this division. The team that I think will be neck and neck with them, I only had them at 7-9, but that looks like a pessimistic prediction. Kansas City, I think they're still going to have some growing pains with Patrick Mahomes, but the rest of that team being solid enough, I think they're going to be right there on the Chargers' neck throughout a good chunk of the season. The two other teams I had at 7-9, I don't believe it anymore. You got Oakland at 7-9. Part of it was, I think I was just in disbelief that John Gruden could come back to the league and be so overmatched, but thus far, that's exactly what it looks like at this point. It has been a dumpster fire with the beginning of his tenure in Oakland this time around. And Denver at 7-9, I'm not as pessimistic on them, but the quarterback situation still a work in progress at best. When you're cutting Paxton Lynch to pick up Kevin Hogan, that tells you all you need to know. I say that from painful experience as a Browns fan. But this is a division where, again, people keep pointing to Denver. But the defense! You saw the limitations in it last year. You have a much higher floor with Case Keenum, but the ceiling is not what you saw a year ago from Case Keenum. A career year, a.k.a. Flutie 98, that's never going to repeat itself. If they're lucky, he's going to give them competent quarterback play. But Thomas and Sanders, a couple of aging wide receivers out there, not guys who can go out and make a quarterback look better than he is. So this is a division where, like I said, I picked these teams more so around 500 coming into training camp. But now I see a divergence and a spread between those teams at this point, Chris.
Well, I'm with you at the top. I've got the Chargers at 11-5. Show me your lightning bolt! I don't know if that applies. I still think that it's an abomination they should be in San Diego, and I will continue to call them the San Diego Chargers,
right?
Even in their 10th year in LA. And I wish somebody would buy that team and bring them back to where they belong. That rant aside, the loss of Hunter Henry hurts. Jason Verrett. I love that roster.
Right.
And I think that this is their year. They fixed the field goal kicker problem that kept them out of the playoffs last year. I think that their schedule sets up pretty well for them. And hey, what a magical thing this would be. They re-sign Antonio Gates at the very last minute to help that tight end core. And wouldn't it be a great magical ride to see him get to the Super Bowl after he, in essence, retired?
Yep.
Because of an injury to a youngster, even a guy who's going to be great in his own time, in Hunter Henry. So I like the Chargers. I'm big on the Chargers. I've put cash on the barrelhead in Vegas on the Chargers.
Okay.
I love Derwin James as a draft pick, one of the steals of the draft.
Yep.
And Melvin Gordon, they finally got a line that's playing well that allows him to run. I think this team is stacked. They're 11-5, maybe they're 12-4. This team is going places, baby. So I'm all in on the Chargers. When we talk about the rest of the division, I see it as Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders. I think the Chiefs have a lot of weapons. They've got some question marks on defense right now. Pat Mahomes, he's got a lot of Brett Favre in him. He really does. He's a gunslinger. He's going to make mistakes, though. He's going to leave some throws on the field because he's going big. I see them at about 9-7. A dangerous team, a good team. They're going to be competitive in every game. But as much as the hype train is crazy for Pat Mahomes, as I usually do with guys that are starting for the first time, I'm like, well, I got to see it first. I got to see it. I see the potential, but I need to see him lead a team through an entire season when it's on his shoulders. Besides by week 5, Sammy Watkins will be out with a hamstring injury or something. So they'll be having to retool a little bit. But I like the Chiefs to probably make the playoffs, like sort of a 9-7. Again, new quarterback, that little half step back, and they're going to have some exciting plays. Don't get me wrong. With Mahomes as quarterback, it's not going to be like Alex Smith. There's going to be some excitement with that team.
Right.
But there's going to be a lot of that flash and bust element, And so, in his first year, I'm thinking 9-7, sneaking into the playoffs. That brings us over to the Broncos. Still a good defense. It's taken a little bit of a step back from where they were. And then, you talk about, bringing in Chubb to pair with Von Miller. On paper, I like that. I like Chubb coming out. I don't think he's Von Miller, part 2, like
right.
They were sort of hyping. But I think he's a solid player who's versatile against the run and the pass, who's going to be, sort of an all-pro quality potential. A Pro Bowl, 3 or 4 times in his career. Solid guy. I like their defense, and their offense is, they've got Case Keenum. I want to sing like the old Tom Sawyer song. He's today's Scott Mitchell. He gets high on you. He gets mile high on you.
Nice.
With the case, yeah. I can piece this together, but not on the fly. Today's Scott Mitchell. He gets mile high on you.
I'll pop for that as a huge Rush fan.
There you go. I have them at 8-8, sort of a middling. I think Case Keenum is a durable, I'm not saying durable, but a quality type of quarterback who's, going to be ranked in the mid-20s. He's going to get you some wins. He's going to manage the game, and they're not going to be dreadful at QB as they have been, and that'll make them competitive. But last year was, he had. A lot of that was that offense, that line, Pat Shurmur, too much into the, and I think, John Elway is showing that he is by and large not a great talent evaluator at much.
Right.
I think I read somewhere that half of his draft last year is already off the team. They've cut.
That's right.
So beyond swinging and missing on the QBs, I got to tell you, I think if they don't make the playoffs this year, which I don't think they will, and they start to re-look around for a QB, there's going to be a lot of talk about we need to move on from John Elway. That's coming.
Interesting.
That if that roster starts to degrade and they can't fix the quarterback position, I suspect that they are, when they're sitting there watching the Chargers win the Super Bowl, there's going to be some talk about, do we need to move on from John Elway? And then last but not least, you described them as a dumpster fire. I have been describing them as a dumpster fire from the day they gave John Gruden that absurd 10-year contract.
Yep.
I didn't like John Gruden when he left the league 10 years ago as a coach. I think way overhyped, way overrated. And I think 10 years of not being a head coach, I still think, I like John Gruden, but I've always viewed him as a bit of a clown. It's like this shtick. And I just don't. I'm not a fan. I never have been. When Browns fans would be like, "Oh, we got to get Gruden," I'd be like, "Oh, please, no."
Right.
So I've been critical of it. I'm not a fan of it. I haven't been a fan of it since the day he walked back in that door. But I got to tell you, you're being kind with dumpster fire.
Right.
I'm going to quote my friend Colton Henson. This is a third-term abortion we're witnessing. This is a train wreck. You look at the picks they're giving up for players they're cutting. Now a fifth rounder for A.J. McCarron. That makes them only slightly smarter than Hugh Jackson.
Better than a second and a third.
Yeah, well, right, 2 + 3 = 5, right? So that's how that works, right?
Not exactly.
At least that's how Hugh thought it works.
Yeah.
He thought by giving up a second and a third, he was giving up a fifth. He didn't know. He's just everybody's friend, so it's cool. I think the Raiders are a train wreck. They are a train wreck. And, yeah, they got a bunch of picks now for Khalil Mack, and they just whacked a Hall of Fame player off their defense.
In his prime.
You talk about ego purge. It's that. And I will tell you the other thing, I know we've talked about this off the air. I think the big reason the Raiders didn't re-sign Mack is I don't think they can afford to.
Good point.
Their owner is known to be probably the poorest owner in the league in terms of wealth. Obviously, Mark Davis was handed that team. He was left to him from his pappy. And their business is that team. That's it. They're not, most of these other owners, a lot of them don't have another prime business anymore, but they built up billions in other industries or still run those industries, Stan Kroenke's got, how much billions is he worth in real estate and stuff around the world and all the pro teams. He's got money. That's why he's spending money this offseason, and we'll get to them. He can do it. But, it's the Raiders, I don't think they could afford, because for those of folks at home that don't understand how this works, when you have guaranteed money, that guaranteed money, the minute that player signs that contract in the NFL, under NFL rules, that guaranteed cash has to be sent to the NFL and put in escrow. So when you're talking, $100 million in guarantees, you have to write $100 million check, or I guess probably a wire transfer, and you send that off to the NFL. And if you don't have, and that's why people talk about all these billionaires. Yeah, because you write $100 million checks, you got to be able to write it that day.
Right. It's
not $100 million over 10 years. It's $100 million then, that minute, sending it to the NFL. And I'm telling you that Mark Davis can't do it. He couldn't write that check. That's part of the reason he's going to Vegas. He's trying to right the ship. He's trying to get more profitable so he can be competitive. But listen, I don't fault the guy from the position he's in the sense that he's trying to make the Raiders a more profitable business and doing those things. Of course, signing Gruden up was a boneheaded thing, and their football decisions they're making are boneheaded. But I get Mark Davis on the business end, going to Vegas, getting those dollars, getting the new stadium, getting that revenue, and trying to get himself in a better position. And that's why they couldn't sign Khalil Mack. No one's talking about it. That's what it is. Do you believe Mark Davis is liquid enough that he could write a $100 million check?
I don't believe that. No, I think you're right about that. I think you're absolutely right. Last thing I've got for the division here, circling back around to the Chargers. A year ago, I compared the Chargers wide receiver chart to the clarity of the Sacramento Kings roster in any given year. You've got Keenan Allen as the number one there, the undisputed. I think Mike Williams is going to step up this year and have a big sleeper season, and that'll give them the clarity they need in that spot. The only question I've got for you about this is, and again, talking about a team that had a good year last year, just missed the playoffs, and I'm sure people on Chargers blogs would scream at me for saying this, because if you follow it on the micro level, maybe this isn't true, but on the national level, nobody ever seems to either criticize or praise Anthony Lynn. Isn't it interesting? This is one of the teams in the league. You don't really hear much about what's going on with the coach. That'll change this year if they step up and they win the division. I just find it interesting that he's been kind of anonymous thus far in terms of a national profile. You don't have that a lot with coaches in the league.
Well, I think a lot of that's his personality.
Okay.
He's not a flashy guy. He's not an out, look at me kind of guy.
Right.
They're not on Hard Knocks. He's not, they moved the franchise. That was the story through sort of, sort of in the shadow of all of that.
Right.
He's got an all-pro quarterback, so he's kind of, people focus on Phillip Rivers. So I just don't think it's Anthony Lynn. I think he's a quiet. To me, he's like, he's the West Coast Todd Bowles, right?
Okay.
We talk about the Jets all the time, but we never talk about Todd Bowles.
Right.
Right?
That's true.
He just quietly did a great job last year with a garbage roster.
Yes.
I mean, a roster that I would argue was worse than the Browns.
Certainly worse.
And he, what they get 6, 6, and 10, or
right.
I mean, he hobbled together a pretty competitive season out of junk.
Right.
And Lynn hasn't done that. I mean, I think if anything, if there was focus on Lynn, it would probably be a little critical. But I think he's a solid dude, a solid coach who's just quiet. He just goes about his business. He's not a quote machine. He doesn't. He doesn't. I think that's his personality, and I don't think that's even when they're winning. I don't think that's going to really change.
Right. I think you're correct about that. And again, I think they're going to have a decent amount of success this year. You think they're going to have even more. So let's say this for the AFC to wrap this up. And going through the playoffs here, I've got it coming down to I've got the Chargers in the playoffs same way as you. I've got them winning over Tennessee the first weekend, Houston over Baltimore, second round New England over Houston, Pittsburgh over Los Angeles, and for the 38th time in the Brady-Belichick era, New England over Pittsburgh in the playoffs in the AFC Championship. Me with the Chalkery McChalkerson picks there, no question about it, Chris.
Yep.
So we'll see how this all shakes out in the AFC in 2018.
As we bring the show to a close, we would like to extend our deepest gratitude to NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, all Clear Channel affiliates, TNT, TBS, USA, UPN, Deadspin.com, YouTube.com, YTMND.com, MySpace.com, various blogs, Fox News, CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, IamBoard.com, Billboard.com, Google.com, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN News, ESPN Classic, NBA TV, NFL Network, Sports Time Ohio, Athlon Magazine, Comedy Central, Cartoon Network, The Boomerang Channel, QVC, BET, The Spice Channel, Steno Notebooks, Manwich, Papermate Office Supplies, waitresses, strippers, bartenders, garbage men, janitors, microwave popcorn, the writers of The Office, Scrubs, Entourage, My Name is Earl, Oz, Metalocalypse and the Boondocks, Aquafina, and the periodic table of elements.